Hi, welcome back to another episode of Tune In with Gab. I'm excited to be here, and today I'm talking about going through a quantum leap. So, if you're wondering what a quantum leap is, then you're in the right place. So, a quantum leap is when we go from one timeline, and what I mean from timeline is the reality you're currently living in, into another reality. And since it's a leap, it's an up level of your reality. So I'll give an example. Say you're in a 9 to 5 job and you're miserable and you all of a sudden you were happy in that 9 to 5 job and you're making a really amazing salary and you have benefits and you're comfortable and happy. And then all of a sudden you start questioning yourself and you're like, or not even questioning yourself, but your reality. And you start being like, I feel like I'm meant for more, or I should be happy with this 9 to 5 job and this salary, but I'm not fulfilled and I want to feel more fulfilled in my daily life. I want to know what my purpose is. You're just outgrowing your current day to day. And that could also include your living space or relationships and whatever it is. It's like this realization and assessing your life and saying, this used to fit for me. This used to feel really good, but it doesn't anymore. And a lot of times when that happens, we feel guilt, we feel shame because we think we should be happy, or we start people pleasing and saying, well, I have all this stuff and I'm doing so well on the outside. It looks like I'm have it all together on the outside. So if I change something and went and traveled the world or quit my job to start this entrepreneurial entrepreneurial business, it wouldn't make sense. But the reality is that it is totally normal to have these feelings and these shifts. You just have to give yourself permission to move forward with them, and that it's part of life, especially if you're evolving and growing, to outgrow things and make changes. So that brings me to my next point. If you are feeling those feelings, this episode is for you. It's also for you if you're wanting to feel closer to your purpose or figure out what that is. If you want to live a life that's more authentic to you, that feels more connected to your soul, where you don't feel like you're a cog in the machine, or you feel like you're actually getting joy out of your day to day, because you are not meant to live a life where you are unfulfilled. You are not meant to live a life where you're just clocking in, clocking out at a job and questioning your purpose. You're here to experience a fulfilling life, to grow and to feel happy, and you're entitled to that joy. You are human, and it's not normal, this society we've built around just feeling unfulfilled and then shoving those feelings down and being like, well, this is normal. So if everyone else is doing it, like, it's normal to have the Sunday scaries and hate my job and dread the week, or not, not see my kids or my family, even though that feels like my number one purpose. Like, it's time right now, astrologically, with the planets and with the year of the horse. This is the year that you can't hide from those feelings or those changes that are you're being called to make. And so when you make that choice, or you start leaning into those internal nudges or intuitive pulls, then you start saying, or looking at what that reality would look like. And in that new reality, there's a different version of you. And the version of you now is not going to fit in that reality, because you're, at the simplest form, making choices differently. You're showing up differently in that different reality. And so, from even a scientific level, you're like trying to go from point A to point B. And there's this in the middle transition, right, that you have to go through. So When people go through a glow up or a huge change, and I'm sure you've seen someone in your life do that, whether it's after a divorce or, they lose a bunch of weight and they start working out, and it's not about the weight loss, it's about who they become. And then you kind of see them glowing from the inside out. So that's what a quantum leap is asking of you is to become the person that is in point B, in the reality of point B. And so there's this misconception that glow ups are easy or like running your own business is easy. Like very often going after your dreams or becoming that higher version of yourself is extremely difficult, which is why a lot of people stay stuck because it's very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to look in the mirror and see where we're getting in our own way or where you might be getting in your own way. And it's uncomfortable to have to face some of the patterns that we are have that we are fully enforcing in our life that are keeping us stuck. So that in between point A to point B is the hardest, messiest part. And that's where a lot of people give up. That's where a lot of people quit. And that's why a lot of people give up on their dreams and then blame it on something else. And I know that is so hard to hear, but it's also very empowering because we are in control of our destiny. As humans, we have free will, we have choices we can make, and that is a very beautiful thing, but also a huge amount of power and responsibility. So it's a lot easier to hide from that power and say, well, I don't have time to work out, or, oh, I don't have time to create a podcast, or, no, I can't leave my job. Like, I can't be a stay-at-home mom because I have a job. Like, I have to live this way. And I'm not talking about like single moms that are literally supporting a family by themselves, but like if you have a partner and leaving your job meant downsizing your whole lifestyle, getting a smaller house, giving up your really nice car to fulfill your dream of being a stay-at-home mom or being with your kids more, like that's definitely possible. It just means there's a lot of sacrifice involved. So watch where you are creating a story or a narrative of why you can't do things versus how can I make this happen and what am I willing to sacrifice or give up to make it happen? Because you can have it all, but you have to become the person that can have it all, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna dig more into this middle messy part because if you're already on the other side of the quantum leap and you're in reality B, then you already are that version of yourself. If you're either at point A and you're having these intuitive nudges or you're in the messy middle of you've made the decision, whatever that choice is, that's moving you towards your dreams and you're feeling scared, this is for you. Or if you're needing a sign to pull you towards that new reality that's calling you. And a lot of us are being called into a new reality. And those that don't want to up level, that don't want to face the middle messy part of shifting who we are or who you are and those patterns are going to be very unhappy. And those are the people that are going to bring you down or get frustrated with you or tell you why you shouldn't go after what you're trying to do or the person you're trying to become. And you have to be very mindful of who those people are in your life. And if anyone is not supporting you in your dreams, or if you're like, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, but then they're the ones that are taking you to McDonald's and like putting you in these or inviting you in these environments where you're like, I don't want to eat that food anymore, or a best friend that you tell them about your wins or your promotions and you know they're secretly jealous of you or not rooting for you, those people have to leave your life. And the way that you're going to know if those people are in your life right now or if those connections don't feel 100% supportive. If you're questioning it and you're like, "Oh, I'm immediately thinking of Barbara or Susan," then Like if they just came to mind when I'm talking about this, then that means your intuition is literally telling you, yes, this person is not for you anymore. And that's where the messy middle from point A to point B is going to ask you to let go of those relationships, which is extremely uncomfortable because, especially if it's family, you are not required to keep family in your life if they are bringing you down or hurting you and not supporting you. And I think our society really manufactures and pushes that family is everything, and it is. But at a certain point, you have to have boundaries of, I'm not letting this person push me around anymore. I'm not letting this person bring me down or affect my self-confidence. I'm not going to take their advice if I don't want to live the life they're living, because you are completely allowed to live a different life than what your family wants for you, or even what you feel like you should be doing based on what your family is doing. So that is extremely important. The other piece is not comparing yourself to anyone else. This is huge. And I'm getting an emphasis, if you're listening, from spirit guides. The team upstairs is saying it's really important that you do not compare yourself to anyone else other than yourself right now, because we are all each on our own journey. And if you compare yourself to other people, that's not going to even be, it's going to be apples to oranges, because each person has such a specific unique journey and purpose of why they're here. So for example, and I shared this on my Instagram stories a few months ago, if someone is having a dream of having a baby and they're having trouble conceiving and they go compare themselves to, you know, Jacqueline that had three kids so easily and she looks so happy, and you're just really desiring the life that Jacqueline has. Well, the truth is that if you compare yourself to her, you don't realize that you don't have like an insight into her inner world or her life. And she might be struggling financially, and her husband just lost his job, and they're having trouble supporting their kids, and they might have to sell their house. And meanwhile, yes, you are struggling to have kids, but you're really successful financially in your career or whatever it may be. And she's wishing over here. She sees your Instagram story with your Bugatti and your mansion, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I could kill for $1 million right now to support my family and not have to sell our house and just have some ease in my life." And it's two people that are suffering in different ways, because we all come here with life lessons and things that we have to go through to become that higher version of ourselves in reality be. And so when you compare, you're not only hurting yourself, but you're denying what it is to be human. And so we're each dealt a very specific set of cards. And some people might thrive in fertility or in finances, but they suffer in their career. But another person, has trouble in fertility, but they really thrive in their health. That's another thing, is like certain people have health issues or they're in a wheelchair and you're sitting here so healthy. So you have to realize that when you compare yourself to another person that has what you don't have, and you don't soak in the blessings and the cards that are amazing for you, then you're just bringing your vibration, your frequency down. So if you are yearning for something and you're going after, or if you're suffering in one of those areas, focus on what you do have and gratitude, because that is one of the fastest ways to a new reality, is and raising your vibration, is to focus on the abundance that you've already been provided. So I know for myself, like I am so grateful because I have two healthy kids. I had very healthy, easy pregnancies. And I feel like that area of my life, I have a lot of ease. Whereas other areas of my life, it takes more effort to build and to, it doesn't come as easily. But in that area, it does. And so we have to soak in what does come easily to us, almost to manifest more of that energy and just accept that some things might take more time and it doesn't mean it's not coming for you. So that's a big part of when we desire something, we're calling it in, is to have gratitude for what's currently in our lives. The other thing that happens when we're trying to go from point A to point B in a new reality in a quantum leap is we are tested. And that's what I'm talking about basically, when certain things come easy and some things don't. And so I love this story. It's a great example of being tested. Is so I read Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass, if you've ever read it. I read it in either 2017 or 2018. Can't remember the exact year. But there's a very specific story she talks about in the book where a woman goes to start her own business after quitting her job, or it was like a huge leap. She invested a ton of money into starting I can't remember if it was a woman or a man, but that doesn't really matter. They're starting a music studio. And so they buy all the equipment, renovate it, make it really nice. And then I think like maybe a week in, the whole place burns down, like literally just burned down to the ground after she spent all that money and time setting up that studio. And that story stuck with me. It's what, 2026, so several years. And that is a great book, by the way. But what I took away from that story is like, and that person kept going with their dream even after that happened. So you may be tested where you're like, if this is my purpose or my path, why am I struggling so hard? Why is it not coming easily? Because I saw so and so start their business and they had success right away. So does that mean I'm not meant to be doing this? And the answer is no, you're definitely supposed to be doing this. Sometimes the universe gives us tests because we have to become the person in reality B that can say, even though this really hard, difficult thing happened, even though I have these obstacles on my path, I'm still going to go after what I want. I'm still gonna focus on that dream and not let that get in the way of my belief in myself. And even this morning, like I'll give an example. I usually record on Wednesdays, and every time I'm like, I want to get out the house. I want to leave at 8:30 so I can get to the office early, record. And I literally this morning sat on one of Leo's toys, hurt my tailbone so bad, I was crying. And then also the chaos of just our morning routine with our family. And then I had a ton of tech issues with setting up. And I could have been like, okay, this is just not going the way I want it. I don't feel great energetically. I'm just going to not podcast today. But even though I was like so overwhelmed when I got here and I was not in the mood. I took some time, I reset, and I said, no matter what, I'm recording this podcast, and this is really important to me. So don't let obstacles discourage you from pursuing your highest path because sometimes that is part of the path, the journey, the point A to point B. And that's how you get to point B is this, the point B version of me is saying, yes, I'm going to do this anyway. Whereas point A version of me would have been like, "Ugh, I don't feel like podcasting today. I'm not in a super good mood. I'm not high vibe. Like, I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week." And it's like, no, the point B version of me, my higher self that I'm becoming is like, no, I'm podcasting no matter what. I'm committed. I'm in a schedule. I'm consistent and I will be resourceful and make it work. And so sometimes you don't feel like doing something that you know is going to put you closer to your goals. Those are the days that you have to still go after it, that you still show up more than any other day, because there will be days it's really easy to show up, but who are you on the days when it's hard to show up? And what choices are you making on those days? Because that's how you create a new reality. is choices based on who you want to become in the simplest form. So it's very, very uncomfortable. And you know you're in the right place. You know you're making the right choices if you feel out of your comfort zone, if you feel like a different version of yourself, or you feel anxiety because your nervous system has to adapt to these shifts, to these changes. And your nervous system is responsible for holding the space to become that new version of yourself. But that doesn't feel safe because your nervous system and your ego wants you to stay in point A forever in your current reality because that's safe, that's comfortable, the cushy job, the benefits, the house, whatever it may be. And if you give that up, your nervous system is going to freak out because it's immediately like, this isn't safe. I'm uncomfortable. How can I get back to point A as soon as possible? So this is the other piece that I want to talk about is identity work or subconscious work. Because if you can't become a person that holds the space for this new version of yourself, you will not get there. And this is probably the biggest block I see myself face and other people is our subconscious. The number one goal is to keep us safe, keep us in that point A because that's where we need to stay. So, subconscious work, inner child work, affirmations, tapping, these are all things, and there's tons of coaches out there that talk about this. And it's really important to focus on this work when you are trying to make a leap because that can really, really hold you back if you don't do the subconscious work. There's someone that I follow, Nora Virginia. She is an identity coach and she shares so many helpful things about this if you're looking to learn more. And she has a podcast. I think it's Glow Up to Blow Up. And I just think that we overlook those pieces like the subconscious work or the patterns because you wouldn't think that that's really important, but it is. And it's you will not get to point B if you don't address the self-sabotage or where you might be holding your own self back in life. So that is key. The last point I'll make is that boundaries are really important, specifically with yourself. And I'm speaking to myself here too. So if you're saying, I need to get out the house at 8:30, or I'm going to record every week, or I'm going to work on my business for 5 hours a week at this time, holding that boundary is going to be so important in showing yourself, especially your inner child and your subconscious, that you're serious and that you're consistent and that you're showing up. And if we continuously ignore that boundary, like if you're saying you're going to go to the gym every morning and then you don't go, that reinstates the patterns that you're holding in point A, which is like, I want to be this person, but I'm not willing to show up consistently or make the choice to take action and be consistent about it. And that's also self-sabotage. I know I do that, and it's something I'm working on is consistency and allowing myself to show up consistently and do it for me, not for anyone else. That's the hardest part because the relationship with ourself is actually going to mirror every relationship we have outside of us. And if our relationship with ourself is damaged, if we're breaking our own self-trust by not consistently showing up when we say we're going to, then it's really hard to one, have your nervous system feel safe, but also to have trust in other relationships, believe it or not. If we don't respect ourselves, other people are likely not going to treat us with respect either. So, building a foundation of self trust and of believing in yourself and showing up consistently because you keep promises to yourself is going to be equally as important as that subconscious work. And they kind of go hand in hand because you're basically showing your inner child, you can trust me. You can know that you can rely on me. And if we don't, if we break those promises, then we have to rebuild it again. And that can be really hard, is when you break the trust with yourself, that's damaging. So hold yourself to a standard of building self-trust and making sure that you are repairing that if you do break it, and working to get back into consistency. So if you're on the verge of a quantum leap or an up level, or you have been having these intuitive pulls, I'm here to tell you that you're on the right path and you're not crazy, and you don't need to get external validation from other people if you are struggling, or you're like, am I making the right choice? Like, Sandra, who's staying in her job and hates her marriage and hates her husband and seems miserable in life, is not going to give you the advice you're looking for to be like, go after it. But if you talk to the successful entrepreneur that is making six figures and left their job 4 years ago and took a huge risk and pushed through it and came out on the other side in reality B, that's who you want to be talking to. And these are called expanders in manifestation. To be magnetic is a great account to follow. I think it's Lacey Phillips. If you're looking for inspiration or more info about manifestation, but basically, expanders are people that mirror what you want. So if you're looking at someone on Instagram, for example, and they're a content creator and they have, 400K followers, and that's what you want to do. And you're in your 9 to 5 job right now and you're like, I want to get there. I want to make money being myself. Well, if you look at that influencer and you immediately have jealousy, or you have negative thoughts about them or criticism, and in your head, like, you automatically have those thoughts, that's a mirror to show you what your subconscious is telling you is possible for yourself. It's like, instead of being like, oh, she's doing that, I could be doing that, your subconscious is basically saying negative things about that person and projecting it as jealousy. So basically feeling like you're inadequate and you can't do that. So you want to shift that belief to viewing them as an expander, which is, that person is showing me what is possible. If they can do that, I can do that. And in a positive way, when you want something that someone else has, it's an opportunity to say, wow, I could go after that. That's possible for me. And then using that as an example of showing your subconscious that's a reality that you can have. And so I think it's a great idea to find, 1 to 3 people that are expanders for you, that are doing what you want to do. Or maybe you follow them on Instagram and they have a life that looks really exciting to you, or you always feel pulled to look at their content, and it's okay if you have jealous thoughts, you can work through that. But that's a message to you. If you have jealous thoughts, it's, oh, I actually want that. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually your mind saying, that's something I desire. And starting to shift it to say, this is my inspiration. Think of a vision board. Like, if you had pictures of that person's life as an example of what you're trying to build, and connecting with that. So I hope that these tips helped you with going on a journey of a quantum leap. And you can quantum leap very quickly if you do the work in the point A to point B. If you get stuck and you hide from it and you run, which I personally feel like I got stuck in point A to point B in the past 2 years, but now I'm feeling like I'm getting forward momentum. And I'll talk more about that and maybe some of the things that I've done to move past it so you don't get stuck. But this is a really opportune time to lean into the timeline shift, lean into getting to reality B, and leaning on people that really inspire you and support you in your life, that encourage you to make that shift. And I will tune in with you next week.